All right. Hey, Paul.
Hey Fab, how are you?
Hey, Charm. I'm good.
Good stuff.
Technical issue there, but I'm good. Yourself?
Good. Do we have a technical issue or is it okay?
No, we're good now. First attempt was bust, but now we're ready to go. All right.
Hey,
So
we're
today I'm
setting new
today pretty
products
interesting
and
actually.
we're opening new territory, so it's normal to have technical issues.
Yeah. We're today should be interesting because why should today be interesting? Yeah, because we didn't really pre-prep anything at all. And two, we'll be talking about a subject that we don't really normally talk about. And three is very timely. So we're going to be talking about a bit sales and marketing software. And I say it's timely because after a week or so of speculation, Salesforce purchased Slack, so software is definitely top of mind for a lot of salespeople right now. But yeah, sales and marketing technology. What do you? I don't know where to start. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I think honestly, you're. Oh, there's some back reverb there. Am I talking too loud?
No, I don't hear reverb. I'm good.
Well, it's interesting, Fab, because I think there's really let's start by the two polar opposites, right? You've got the old school and the old school thinking modern salespeople who said, I hate all that software stuff. Just let me do what I got to do and go where I got to go and all that. And then you've got the super high technical people who like are early adopters who like use it to the full max and get a certain obviously good results from it. And
Yep.
And let's face it, most people find themselves, I think, in between there somewhere, like either closer to the old school guy or closer to the super early adopter. And,
Yep.
and my take, this is a personal thing, right? Because what I've seen, and when I say it's personal, it's anecdotal data. I do have a lot of anecdotal data because I'm a sales consultant.
Uh-huh.
My anecdotal sales data tells me that the right software makes a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
That the right implementation makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
The problem is, I think a lot of people don't have the knowledge, capacity, or bandwidth. When I say bandwidth, the energy or the time to implement it properly. And offline, before I was giving you a perfect example, I won't mention the software, and after that, I'll stop talking and let you give your opinion. I worked for a large company in the past, and we had decided to move forward with a specific CRM.
Yeah.
And the CRM that they were trying to implement was a great CRM, but the way it was implemented was haphazard. What they wanted us to do is continue using the old methodology. I was pretty high up in the food chain then. They wanted us to keep using the old methodology with our team and then ask them to double up. So it wasn't properly implemented. I'm sure it's working fine and whatnot, but that sort of left that experience, personal experience, made me feel that, okay, you've got to do this properly, particularly in large enterprises.
Yeah.
Myself, I use a small little CRM, and I use a different one, but I'm very happy with it. It serves my purpose. I'm alone, right?
Sometimes. And we're switching you to HubSpot, by the
way. And so my take on that is that properly used, a CRM will greatly benefit a company. And I don't mean just a little bit, I mean greatly. Improperly used, it's useless. It just becomes a burden.
It just becomes what, sorry?
A burden.
A burden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of people buy the CRM, put it in, sort of have a first, data transfer into the CRM, and then the thing falls apart because they don't have anyone guiding them and helping them in best use. And I think it requires a lot of coaching and an ongoing help. So that's my overview. So let's hear your overview.
Yeah, I mean, similar, although I'll say there's probably a lot less marketers that are like, as you would call it, old school, although I kind of dispute a bit the terminology old school, but old school that don't want to use technology because it's just not the way marketing goes anymore. Like I've never met a marketer that was just like, let me just put these print stuff together, and like it doesn't, that just doesn't happen. And so I think marketing's been, although Salesforce, which is a CRM and therefore a sales tool, has been around for a long time. I think marketing has been much more software driven than sales. Well, let's call it that. But yeah, there are some people that are more reticent to change and things like that, obviously. That said, like you, I mean, a marketing tool that's not well implemented is not going to be worth it for a lot of people. It's going to be hard to get value out of it. So hard to see the value out of it. And I think the challenge in marketing is that because marketers tend to be more, oh, what's this new thing and let's try this out, is that they tend to accumulate this massive marketing technology stack, and at the end of the year have a hard time justifying all the various expenses. So I think kind of what you were bringing to was that I think when you're implementing a software, because one, it's needed. One, a great software will help you and is, dare I say, required at this point in time, 2020, 2021, whenever you hear this, is required. You need software. Like what's that?
Let's pause there for a second. Absolutely. I think it's any self-respecting sales organization has to move in the direction of having a CRM. Mm-hmm. It's no longer if, it's when and how. Continue.
Yeah. And I think that's it. But I think the first step, whether you're in marketing or in sales, or you're the business owner and you need to review all of them, I think one is like you have to look, and if you're like, my CRM is old and dated, if I don't have robust marketing software, it's definitely the time to think at least about changing it. And the step one would be, is it doing what we need it to do? And taking into account that we are 2020, 2021, people have certain expectations, and this idea that because we talk mainly to B2B folks, that we're in B2B and things like move a little slower, I think is that logic is kind of no longer relevant. Like people buy from Amazon, people use Facebook, people are used to technology and software that works. And if you're not providing that to your employees, it definitely reflects for the customer.
Let me ask you a question. You say a CRM that works. And the way I define a CRM that works in my world is, does it help management? Mm-hmm. Does it help top-end leadership? But most of all, does it help sales? And that's very different, right? Because I think a lot of people who see the CRM say, okay, we're going to have all these great dashboards to see how people are selling and what they're selling, and we'll be able to, and that's true. But to the sales individual, if it's not a sales tool, if it doesn't make their life easier or better as a salesperson, or help them do what they need to do, then you're going to have a really hard time in stating it. If you're just doing it for accountability pipelines and trying to do forecasts, yeah, it's great. But if your salespeople don't see the advantage of it being a tool, then it won't go forward. And my question to you is, in your implementation and whatnot, have you seen, how many times do you see companies sort of forgetting to do the tool part and are just doing the accountability and the accountability and dashboards?
Yeah, I mean, all the time, right? Because usually the decision to implement a new software, marketing and sales, comes usually from the top. I mean, you might have influencers that pushed up and brought up the issue. But at the end of the day, the person or the people making the decision are usually at the top, or always at the top. And they tend to, and some organizations have very employee first cultures, but a lot don't. And they tend to put their needs above the needs of the rest. And so they'll think pipeline and they'll think marketing reporting and this and that. And then that's it. I mean, maybe a little less in marketing, but definitely in sales, right? Then what happens is that it's not clear why the sales process is set up that way, or it's not clear for the salesperson why I need to update these 3 properties, or it's not clear what. And so what happens, especially for, what you called before the old school, although that could be a mentality with younger salespeople, is like the salespeople that have a high confidence tend to be, let me just do what I need to do, and I don't need to do all this. And we've all worked with these types of salespeople, which are like their system or their part of the system is a mess. But you know what? At the end of the day, they're the ones that are driving revenue, because the only thing that's really properly tracked and across all organizations is revenue, and that's accounting usually that takes care of it. And so salespeople know how much money they made or how many revenue they've generated, because it's usually tied to their commission. So that's usually the part that's very tight, but the rest is a mess, and that's because they've never seen value from it. And
you're right. If you can't, you're gonna have a hard time getting someone to adopt something that is not. I mean, you might get them to do it, but you probably won't get the quality, or you're not using your CRM to its full potential if it's not a tool for your salespeople.
Yeah, and I think,
but for it to be a proper sales tool, you need to have a sales process. You need to understand your own sales process. You need to understand the sales semantics that you're using. You need to have a common sales semantic. Everyone has to speak the same language. You have to evaluate things the same way. And if you don't do that, you're gonna have a really hard time turning it into a tool for your salespeople.
And I mean, the same thing with marketing, right? Like, it's nice, to implement like a marketing automation software like HubSpot and be like, okay, and then realize like, oh wait, like, what's the marketing like? Why do we need? How should we be using the emails? How should we be using the social? How should we be using landing pages and stuff like that? Because the first step is always to map out your process, right? And we had a few episodes on sales process, marketing process, sales and marketing process, and I think that's always the first step, but that's always the least interesting, maybe the more difficult task to do, especially if you're not, you're not an expert in sales. Let's say I'm a CEO.
Look how many times we talked about sales process, you and I. Look how many episodes, how many times we talked about sales process and sales semantic, and these are things that you don't instinctively do, because if you're alone, if you're running your company alone, it doesn't matter what your sales process is, because you're doing it yourself, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you might want to adopt your sales process, but you are your own salesperson. And if you're having success, not that it doesn't matter, but if you're having success in doing what you're doing, well, I just do what I do, right? And it works well. But
and there's only a certain amount of hours in the day to be like, well, yes, I could have the sales process to optimize my sales, but it's like at the end of the day, if I'm doing well, the incentive is not there to always optimize.
Which is a bit of human nature, and it's a bit unfortunate because things are not always doing well. So really, I think before you decide, and that's really the point I was getting to, before you decide on a CRM, dashboards are great, reporting is great, all that, but before you even go there, you need to understand your sales process. You need to understand the semantics you're using. And if you don't have a proper sales process, you need to establish it. You need to do that first, unless you already have a working CRM. And once you've done that first, then get the CRM, because then you can just move it over, and then your CRM becomes a tool that will be helpful to your salespeople. What I say to salespeople who are not used to using CRM, I said, that's where you should be writing all your notes. You shouldn't have any notes anywhere else. You shouldn't have anything anywhere else. It should all be in your CRM. It should live. That's what your CRM is for. You shouldn't be copying notes and in an ideal world, this too. You're writing an email from your CRM. You're calling from your CRM. Everything's recorded. Everything's there. When I say recorded, not necessarily recording your clients, but the fact that you made a call is there, and all the information's there, and that's what will make that software usable. And after that, it becomes, to me, and I know you're very HubSpot centric and you like it, but this is where I believe that you choose the CRM according to your needs and benefits, a little bit like you choose a car. So if you're driving a Tesla, it's a great car, but maybe the Bolt or whatever it's called there, the GMC Bolt or whatever it's called, is just as good, right? And maybe the BMW E will be just good for you as well, or maybe you need a hybrid. And I use that example because they'll all get you from point A to point B, But what are the features that are going to make it that it's going to be much better for you?
Mm-hmm. No, exactly. And I think it's so much easier easier, quote unquote. I mean, it's still a large investment and it's still an important decision, but it becomes easier when you know what your sales process is, and on marketing side, what your marketing process is, and exactly and kind of what you need and why you need to do it. And then you can also look at like the competencies within the team. Do you have somebody who's able to customize and tweak the system? Do you not? Are you going to need a consultant? Then it's so much easier to make these decisions because you're just looking for a tool that's going to answer your needs, as opposed to just they all look the same. I don't know what I'm going to use. Because if that's what your answer is, it's probably that you haven't done enough of your, not homework, but your initial groundwork of building your sales process, building your marketing process, building out the elements that you're going to need, how you're going to address each element, and stuff like that, which is like we said before, definitely the first step.
Yeah, absolutely. And another question I have for you, Fab, because you obviously come at it from a marketing sales perspective. In choosing that proper software or that proper approach, what have you seen as being the biggest problem or the biggest barrier that needs to be overcome to really do it properly?
In terms of choosing?
Yeah.
The biggest barrier is it often boils down to people don't really know what they want. They usually get to what I've seen when it was time to onboard. I mean, obviously I do HubSpot. So when it comes time to onboarding HubSpot, the biggest problem is usually somebody's fed up with their current system, whether they're using another CRM or various marketing tools, and they kind of become fed up with it. They've either outgrown them or their system's a mess or whatnot. But the challenge is again, what we just talked about is, how is this new tool going to help me or not? Because they haven't done that groundwork, right? They haven't done okay, fine, my CRM's a mess, so I want to change because I can't stand it anymore. Okay. But if you're just going to do an import and a data dump, the new system will still be a mess, right? So what do you need to fix it? And then, in my case, how can HubSpot help you go forward? So that's the biggest one. Is the biggest blocker is always that in between, which is I don't like my current situation, and I want something new, but how do I make sure that the new will be better than the old?
Yeah. It's interesting. So we've talked a lot about CRMs, but what about the platforms like Slack or other platforms like project management platforms? What about those? What are your opinions on those? I mean, I've used Slack and I actually really liked it, but I remember the time when I started using it, I'll give you my perception. It was why don't we just have a group chat, right? And then I realized quickly, you can categorize things, you can talk to specific people, and I quickly realized, whoa, this is a great tool, right?
Yeah.
And I really liked using Slack, and it was great, particularly in a company. At first I thought, in a very small company, it was just you and I, well, we just text each other.
Yeah.
But the minute you're over that critical, and I'm not sure what Slack says, but to me, the minute you're over that critical, 4, 5, 6, 7, even 10 employees, I think it becomes really useful because you can create little groups and yes, certain phone companies or if you're an Apple user, or even Facebook, you can use Messenger, but I still think there's a very user-friendly approach to Slack. I just remember thinking, wow, this is easy. Boom, you're there. It's visual, it's easy to use. So anyways, what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, and it's interesting you went there because I also wanted to talk to you. Okay, fine. We talked about CRM, we talked a bit about marketing automation, but there are other softwares that exist, right? I think, obviously internal work tools like Slack are important. I mean, it's interesting that Slack got acquired by Salesforce. I think Slack needed it because Microsoft came strong with Teams and how Teams integrates with Dynamics and Office and all that. But Yeah, those are essential, right? I mean, I think like any video conferencing software, like internal communications are going to be critical. When you're in sales or even in marketing, speed is often of the essence. And so to be able to reach out to somebody on Slack, do a video call right within the platform with one of your colleagues. Sometimes, what I have, even if I have Slack channels with different of my clients, so I can go back and forth, chat with them and stuff like that, I think is becoming increasingly crucial. And I think that's why Salesforce acquired it. And like you said, also for CRMs, like salespeople tend to not like them. And so like maybe having a tool where the salesperson actually could help. But I think that's a big addition. These internal and external communication tools are crucial.
And are there any other tools that we should mention? Like, what's that project? I'm forgetting the name now. I think it's is it Monday, or there's another project?
Monday. Yeah, Monday. There's Trello. So those are basically what I like about, because what I've seen before in some companies is that the sales process becomes kind of a project management tool. So what I like with using a tool like Trello is that your sales process. But yes, sometimes, and last week we spoke about sales engineering, and so some sales processes and some marketing processes can become very complex because the product you're selling is complex. And so having in parallel a project management tool that helps you spec out a project or something like that can be really useful.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in marketing, I mean, these Trello or Mondays are super useful because marketers are often require different types of material like videos and images and text, and so it becomes easier to manage the team and know exactly what's needed for what at what date for which campaign and stuff like that.
And let's talk quickly about the simple stuff like the cloud storage platforms like Dropbox. I use Dropbox a lot actually. And,
yeah.
And I know like if you're using the Microsoft Office, you have I think it's OneNote or whatever, I forget the name of OneDrive, right? And you can stick everything on the OneDrive. What I like about Dropbox is it's a little bit platform agnostic. So whether you're Mac or PC, whatever, I can send things and create things. I don't know. I'm not a connoisseur there. I will not pretend to be a connoisseur. I'm very much, I use it for my own purposes and it works well. But what's your opinion there? Is there an opinion, or like whatever works to you?
Whatever works. I think, obviously like these tools, like the big juggernauts there are Google, Microsoft, and Dropbox. If you tend to work in a Google environment, like you have Gmail and you have Google Calendar, and also Drive will probably work well for you. If you have various platforms, maybe a Dropbox is more interesting. And if you're Microsoft, if you use Outlook, if you use Word and stuff like that, maybe OneDrive or OneNote or whatever it's called is probably most interesting.
Well, for example, I've got nothing against Teams. I love Teams. At times I've used it. It's very useful. But what I don't like about Teams is if you're not using a Microsoft platform and you're not a Teams person, like the other day, a client of mine they really had to fiddle to figure out how to send me a video or record. Yeah. Whereas what I like about Zoom, I just, I can record it to the cloud or to my computer. I can send it to anybody. It's MP4 or whatever format, and everyone and anyone can use it. So I don't know. Is that just me being a little bit old school there, or?
Honestly, I haven't had that much experience with Teams, so I can't say for sure. But yeah, these platforms try to keep you within the environment, and that's why the Slack Salesforce thing makes sense, right? Because Microsoft came in strong with Dynamics and Teams and Office and all that integration. So again, I think it varies a bit more. Like yes, you'll have two tools like Zoom and Dropbox that are maybe more platform agnostic, and they're good for maybe companies that are more platform agnostic and have different elements. Maybe they're Salesforce, but they use Word and they use Gmail for their email. Maybe you want something a bit more agnostic, but some companies are very integrated. Like they just use Google products and then, Hangouts and all that.
Maybe there's something here that's interesting. So you're talking about Google and whatnot. So, obviously Microsoft, you've got Dynamics, you've got, the ERPs, you've got everything. You can, Microsoft's got everything, and you can just Microsoft. Now Google has a lot of interesting, but they don't have a CRM, do they? Have they associated themselves? Do you think that's intentional to keep the door open so that they, because I'm wonder if that's the next step, that Google's gonna, buy up some like HubSpot or something, and say, okay, it's now integrated with Gmail or the G Suite.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know that Google really went into the enterprise software space. I mean, they do some enterprise stuff with cloud services and everything, but I don't know if it's in their game. I mean, I remember speaking to like some tech specialist a long time ago, like maybe 10 years ago, and saying like, how come Google doesn't have a CRM? Like, it just feels like it makes sense.
They decided not to play there.
What's that? Sorry?
They decided not to play there, I guess.
Yeah, I just don't think it's their space. Like, I think they're more consumer space. I mean, yeah, they have like enterprise and small enterprise in terms of the email and the calendars and the drive, the files and all that. But CRM and it's such a crowded space. Like, it's a very difficult space to.
Well, I mean, if they bought the big guys, it'd be if they bought HubSpot or something else, it'd be very interesting.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of smaller companies that use.
Sorry.
What's that?
They could call it G-Spot. Sorry.
Oh man, we had to go there.
No, it just came into my head. I said, "Oh, that's too funny." I said, "Fab's gonna love that one. I'm gonna make him laugh."
Oh, that is good. Yeah, I just don't think it's their space, to be honest with you. Yeah. It's a crowded space, and they probably don't have the expertise to do it, and it's probably just not that worth it at this point.
Yeah.
But that's it. Who knows?
And the same thing goes for Apple, right? Apple hasn't associated themselves to any CRM, and because I mean, you're right. It's more enterprise. So really, who are the only company? The only company that's created one big solution so far is Microsoft, right?
Yeah, I mean, Salesforce is there. I mean, Salesforce is like Salesforce when they acquired
Salesforce doesn't, but Salesforce, they don't have an email service. They don't, what I mean? They don't have a full service. It's just look, it's just a comment. It's me going off on a tangent here.
Cool. But if we bring it back to technology, so we talked about some of the marketing stuff, some of the sales stuff. We talked about some peripherals, but I wanted to know, like, have you used like other things? So like, for example, in my career on the sales side, like we've used like kind of these prospecting, kind of email sequencing, call sequencing tools. We've used call recorders to be able to record conversations, and we've used maybe more, data tools and all that to go get, when you're prospecting, instead of like scouring LinkedIn, you could just go into ZoomInfo or whatever and grab the data. Have you used any of those? What's your thought on those?
Yeah, I have used them, and they were very interesting. Everything has limitations, right? So, but for example, there's one tool that works really well with LinkedIn, where you can, send out a lot of information at the same time, and it's great. It's wonderful. Yeah, and I firmly believe, I'm a firm believer. I'm one of those guys who I like those tools, and I like the way it works, because in my natural state, I'm not the most organized human being. So anything that helps me be organized, and that's probably why I prone all of these organization tools, because they really help you be organized, and why rack your brain when something can really help you go in the right direction? So yes, I have used them. I like them. I like the prospecting tools, but they have limitations. You can only do so much. The perfect bot, and I could train it to do all of my prospecting and cold calling, I'd love that, right? And maybe that's the next phase. Maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, you'll be able to have a bot show. They'll learn from you, and then they can go do your prospecting, and that's wonderful.
I remember there was a tool actually, and I forget the name now, but you still had to upload the data and whatnot, but it was kind of an AI bot that would do the email outreach. And so they would tweak the messages based on how the prospects would engage with your emails, and also based on their loads of data from other people using it. So
not like Watson becoming a racist after having after talking to people for 2-3 weeks or something. Remember that?
Yeah, that's true. And so I remember that tool specifically. They had determined from all their data that Rachel was the name that got the most open. So like a lot of the bots were called Rachel, like the AI-driven SDR was called Rachel and all that. So that was fun. But I know as a marketer that one of the tools that I love when salespeople use are call recorders, just because for marketers to get intelligence into how prospects think and stuff like that is really interesting. I like those a lot. So that, like, it just kind of records the call, so that then, obviously the sales manager can then listen to the calls as well to be able to train and coach. But for marketers, they're great because you can really hear a prospect talking. And if you have a good consultative sales team who's asking good questions, then you can really hear the words that the prospects use and hear their real concerns and what are the real whys of buying your product and stuff like that. So
I know that there was one software that even calculated the amount of time that people were speaking. So if you were a salesperson and you should be speaking 20% of the time and you were talking 80%, it would tell you, and it was looking for keywords. So I think those are great tools,
Yeah.
I think
I love those tools.
Yeah, and I think it's great. I think you just have to, what's very important in all this is you keep your objectives clear, and why am I using this tool? Right?
Yeah.
And what am I trying to do with it, and where is it trying to get me? So let's summarize this. So I think we're both on the same page on this one, but that these tools are great. So what do we say to people who are not sure how to go about finding these tools? What's the first step? What should they do?
I think the first step is, obviously identify. What's that, sorry?
Apart from using HubSpot.
Yes, use HubSpot. You'll be fine. No, I think the first step, which is usually the most difficult, are what's the problem that you're trying to solve, right? And I think increasingly the customer experience from A to Z, right, from when they're a prospect to when they sign and afterwards, like what's it like? And so look at, are your tools allowing you to really give your customers a full experience?
Fab, what if there are no problems? What if? So a lot of people want to grow. I think forward. So shouldn't they be? What's the first step in looking towards? Let's say that all they're using right now is they have their basic email, whatnot, and they don't have a great CRM. Like, what's the first thing they should do to? And I don't have the answer. It's not a trick question.
No, I think one, you need to take an honest look at yourself. If you still have like an old software, legacy software, I think you need to take an honest look. And that goes on the marketing side as well. If like I spoke to a customer or a client, a potential, a long time ago, and they had like an old content management system, like they were the only clients left on that contact management system. And then you need to take a serious look and really consider, like, is this doing what we need it to do?
Yeah.
And I think if the answer is yes, I think I would really dig deeper, because there's usually a reason why other customers have left the software and stuff like that. So I know it's not a really tight and neat answer, but I think, but then you also need to, like, is this getting what I need out of it, right? If you're using, like, if your company, your salespeople are still using like Excel sheets.
Let me put it this way. What are the questions? What are the questions that you need to be asking yourself?
Am I getting what I want out of it as a lead? Let's say I'm a business leader or a sales or a marketing leader. Yeah. Can I see what's working or not? Can I see what's driving revenue? Can I see that? Two, are my people or marketers using?
I thought that was three.
What's that, sorry?
I thought that was the third one, but.
Okay, whatever. Three. I think is my team using it, right? If I have a CRM but nobody's using it, or if I'm paying for marketing automation software but nobody's using it.
Okay.
There's a question there.
So there's, what software should I be using it, and how do I implement it, and what objectives am I trying to reach? Because that's what I would say. I would say first and foremost, what are your objectives? Most companies want to grow, so we want to grow, and we want to grow rapidly. Okay, how will this software help you get there? Whether it's a CRM or a project management tool or a communication tool or an email tool, and how do they work together too? That's one thing that like, for example, I'm using G Suite, but I'm using a third-party CRM, and I'm using another discussion communication tool. Like, how do they work together? I think that's important as well, right?
Yeah, of course. But you're right. And I think the first thing is, like, what's my main goal? Like you said, growth. So depending on what type of company you are, that could mean acquiring customers. It could mean more profitability, more revenue. Like, every company is different. And then is your tool allowing you to do that? If not, or if you're not sure, I think there's some homework to get done at that point.
Okay.
If you can't say, yes, my CRM is helping me drive, let's say, new customer or get new customers, because then if you can't answer that question, then I think you need to take a step back and look at why you're using the CRM that you're using or how you're using it and stuff like that. And same thing on the marketing side, right? is my marketing software allowing me to generate more leads so that we can get more customers? And if you're not sure, you need to
talk to an expert like Fab or Paul.
Boom. Sales pitch.
No. But it's true. It's not an easy question. It's just, I think you have to ask yourself these questions, but you also have to know what to look for. So I think having, that's what's great, actually. A lot of these CRM platforms have people that can help you discover what it is you need to do, and you can talk to them and see what's best. A lot of them have great demos that you can look at, because the interface is important too. How does it work on the phone? Are most of your reps on the road? Are most of your reps sitting at a desk? Are most of your reps, how engaged do you want them to be? I've got a client using Teams, and they're like, oh, hold on, I was talking to you the other day. Well, I'm going to Teams this person, and he reaches out to them, and it almost works like Slack.
Yeah,
everyone's there. You see who's available, and boom, you can talk to them. You can send them notes. You can create, streams. So there's. I understand what Salesforce by Slack.
Yeah.
Okay, so hey, I think we have to wrap this up. What's le mot mon ami?
That was really fun.
Okay, perfect. It was really
cool.
fun. I hope you got more confused than when we started. That was
okay. So let's clear it up. The two basic things: CRM, marketing automation tool. Like, look at those two things. If they're not helping you achieve your revenue, if you don't understand how, then you need to rethink what you're using.
Start there. I like that, Fab. That's a great wrap up. Okay.
All right. Take care, Paul.
Ciao, friends.
Bye.